You've lived a great life and done well for yourself. But what mark will you leave on the world? How will you inspire future generations? Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand have helped thousands of people answer exactly those questions. If you've ever wondered, what will be my legacy? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Stan and Katie Beth.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your hosts, Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Joining us today is inventor, entrepreneur, diver, and author, Marc Geriene. Also joining us are members of the Treasure Experience team, Chris Geriene and Mike Baumhoff. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. So as we kind of jump into this, I have tons of questions, but for any of our listeners who have not ever heard about Treasure Experience, Marc, I want you to tell us a little bit about your background, and then I want all three of you to kind of jump in and explain to our listeners who have no idea what Treasure Experience is. I want you to tell them what it is and how it works.
Okay. I'll do the compressed version of my long story. 45 years ago, I answered an ad in a paper. 3 divers needed for Caribbean expedition. Share expenses and profits. I was a student at the University of Washington studying Chinese and other things that seemed to be good at the time and probably still are. But I took a turn in another new direction when I answered that ad, and it required me to sell my car, pretty much everything I owned. I committed my life for the next 3 years to go to the Caribbean. My brother got to go with me. He signed up shortly after I did. And we got an adventure. We really, both of us thought it would be temporary and that we might find normal lives again. Well, we went back after the 3 years and we tried the normal life and didn't like it. So after several years of being miserable, we rejoined ourselves to our prior activities and started back what we'd been doing when we were younger. And so now we've been doing this 35 years, Chris and I have, as partners. We started out the Caribbean. That was a good place, nice weather most of the time. Lots of shipwrecks, lots of frustration, broken equipment, crew issues, all those normal life things only magnified. And pirates too, actually, there were still pirates. And then in the early 90s, we found our way to Southeast Asia, still doing the same thing, spent a lot of time in the South China Sea. Different genre of shipwrecks. We were looking at mostly colonial period, which is like the Spanish, the English, the French, the Dutch in the Caribbean. And when we got to Southeast Asia, we were with Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese ships that predated the colonial period. And so it was a whole new type of history for us and a lot of new learning. Different types of cargo from the ships, more interesting in many ways, not necessarily worth more money. But then we found our way back to North America in 2017, started surveying both east and west coasts of Florida, and now are gearing up to work off both coasts of Florida and parts of the Caribbean this year. And maybe we'll do a project or two in Southeast Asia before the end of the year.
Very cool. So you alluded to this a little bit, but Treasure Experience isn't just a business, it's a family business, right? So you talked a little bit about how you and Chris got involved in doing this. Through that and the way you guys got involved, how did COVID affect your company?
I think like everyone else, it put life on hold for most of 2 years. So actually, I was in Australia February 1st, 2020, and just signed contracts, planned to work much of that year in Asia, and then flew back to the Philippines, saw things closing up, said, well, hey, I'll jump off to the US. This will be a temporary thing and I won't be stuck. So I ended up in Seattle for about 6 months. And actually it was a little over 4 months and found our way. And then we came down to Florida end of June. So it's very, very difficult in the adjusting because I think like anything, nobody knew how long it would be. And interestingly enough, while you can imagine that you'll live on a boat and you'll be at sea, you might have to deal with the COVID. Well, when marinas are closed and hotels are closed and restaurants are closed and gas stations, all those things really, really inconvenience us. So I think COVID cost us a full year. First, the 6 months delay, and then we both got sick. I had, in the terms of one of my physicians, been flirting with Bacchus. So I had double pneumonia, the whole thing. And actually, it took me almost 10 months to recover from that. So arguably, we lost a year and a half, no matter how you do the math. But we're happy to be alive and healthy and right on the edge of doing some exciting things.
So guys,
There you
in 35 years, you guys have been doing this for, did I hear that right? 35 years now.
Yes.
So in 35 years, I'm going to guess that you've found some pretty cool stuff.
Oh, yes, we have.
So give me some examples of some of the cool stuff you found.
Well, I would say that some of the coolest things we found were in Asia. And one was a 900-year-old ship that sunk in the South China Sea. Some of the porcelain that we recovered that's in our museum collection, I've been to Beijing, I've gone to the Sackler Museum of Art and Archaeology at Beijing University, seen the museums all through Asia, and the Smithsonian, the Seattle Asian Art Museum, the San Francisco Asian Art Museum, looked at the auctions, and we know that we have several pieces that no one else has in the world. So while they may not have a dollar value, they're truly priceless. And so those are the coolest things. I think finding a 500-year-old teacup in the bottom of the ocean that hasn't been broken is one of those miracles. It destroyed a 300-ton vessel. Everybody on board probably didn't make it, but this teacup that if you dropped it off the counter would shatter, survived. So while we don't measure our success monetarily in this sense, it's more what's discovered, what's new, what's different and unique. Of course, we like to make money so we can keep playing the game, but I would put that as one of the coolest things. There are other things that we've done. Unfortunately, we have confidentiality agreements with governments that we do these projects sometimes, and either we can't talk about it or it would be distasteful. But we did work with several groups in Japan locating ships that sunk in World War II. And we worked with not the survivors, but the descendants of those people that died. And we arranged for the Shinto ceremonies to be performed at what they would call the burial sites. And unique to Japan is that when the emperor said, "Go fight for me," he said, "If you die, you'll live with me forever in the Yasukuni Shrine." And so they've had these rituals where they go to the sites where ships sank, and they recover a little bit of forensic material from the site, and they take it to either the Yasukuni Shrine or one of the shrines that are dedicated to the ships. And the people, they have the real burial ceremonies and the tears and the prayers and all of that. So we've been able to do that, but we can't say a lot of specifics. We might offend certain people, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat if we get a chance.
So just as an amateur, I've never been on a treasure hunt, but when I think about treasure hunts, the first thing that comes to my mind is like gold bars, gold bullion, money, bags of money. I mean, is that naive? Do you find stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we do. Early days, we did find it, but it all was taken away and given to someone else and ended up in either being distributed. We were too far down the food chain when we first started. But a lot of times it gets taken away by either the country of origin or the jurisdiction that you happen to be in. And so you might get to find it, but you might not get to keep it. And it's usually not worth fighting any gunboats over or even lawyers. Sometimes it's just better to take the adventure and go live to play another day. So, but actually in our business, it's gold bars, gold coins. Those are things that are always exciting, but if you start talking about the amount of stuff that you found, then you can find in 100% of the cases that trouble follows right after that.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Stan.
No, I mean, that's an insight. I never thought about that being a problem with, being in a treasure hunting business.
Right. Yeah. On the movies, it never works that way. Right. Which is for 99% of us probably listening to this podcast. I would say we didn't know that before this. And then also, Mark, you very casually mentioned the word pirates and then just breezed by it. But but I would love to hear your most exciting pirate story.
I'm going to defer that to Chris because he's actually
All right,
encountered more
Chris, tell
pirates
us
than I
your
have.
most exciting pirate story.
Well, the one where they literally came up over the back of the boat with knives in their teeth, literally. We were in Guyana, we're doing some maintenance work on the boat, and the boat that I was working on. So rough and tumble place. So we had deck watches, a couple of the guys with shotguns, and just walking around on deck, and the two guys came crawling up the back of the boat, and one of the guys fired off a shot in the air, and then they departed the back of the boat. So that was probably the most nerve-wracking. But we had the project that we did for the 900-year-old shipwreck. That was in the South China Sea, and we were down south of the last Christian outpost. So there was it was a kind of a hot spot. We worked with the locals out of their boats. We didn't come in with a big salvage boat. We worked out of bancas and try to stay low key and look like the fishermen there, which the fishermen there, they dive underwater and spear their fish. So that was how we blended in, because we had pirates roaming about. They didn't come near us, but we also had gunboats roaming about. And so both of those two things definitely, we wouldn't stay on site very long. We would be out for a few days and then come back in and wait and then go back out later for a few days. Mainly because there was no place comfortable to sleep on a basically it's like a dugout canoe that has outriggers on it with a single putt motor. We went 40 miles each way to get to the site each time we went out there and back. So a couple of days on the sea like that, and you're ready to come in, and regardless of how well you're doing. So I don't have another pirate story. I have seen one of the early boats that I was working on looked a lot like a Coast Guard cutter, and I watched a little island in the middle of Hogstye Reef that as we pulled up close, we saw 3 boats, those fast boats, the go fast boats, depart, going away from us as fast as possible. And there was one bale of marijuana floating around in the bay when we got there.
You ruined someone's day, Chris.
Well, we
for
definitely
sure.
broke up a party.
So, okay, so pirates aside, there is the diving aspect of this, which obviously, Mark and Chris, that's your expertise, but there's also a technical aspect to this. So, Mike, can you just walk us through like what is it that you do that is the technical side of this experience?
Absolutely. So really with the treasure experience, you hear these great stories that Mark and Chris have, and you think to yourself, man, it would be fantastic to go along and experience some of that. And that's really where the treasure experience was born from. How do we allow people to not uproot their lives and travel to Southeast Asia and, go try to sleep in a dugout canoe, but still want to come along for that journey? Because the journey really is the most special part of all this. You kind of hear about some of the recovery, but it's the stories and all of that. And so the real treasure is the experience, is what we like to say. So how do we facilitate that experience? You're sitting in Omaha, Nebraska, and want to become a treasure hunter. What do we do? So we leverage the technology that we have available to us. So really our member portal right now, which is at treasureexperience2.com. The 2 is there because it's an elevated experience. And we're really trying to provide that interactive type of element for individuals looking to experience the life of Chris and Mark here. So what we're doing is we're going to be live streaming all of these discoveries. So the first time the divers go down, you'll be traveling with them. You will lay your eyes on these wrecks and these historical sites as soon as the divers will. So you really have the bragging rights along with the people on the boat that you were there looking at this thing that hasn't had human eyes on it in hundreds of years. And so there's obviously a lot of technical components that go into that when you're trying to live stream from Southeast Asia in the middle of the ocean. What do we do there? We don't have Wi-Fi. We don't have Zoom available to us. So a lot of satellite connectivity and a lot of that infrastructure. So Mark and Chris have the cool stories. They're on the boat doing the things. I'm the nerd in the background trying to make it all work. So it's not so exciting. My best pirate story is, probably seeing Pirates of the Caribbean in the theater. So along with everyone else.
That's my best pirate story too.
Exactly. So it's really a good fit in knowing that they, Mark and Chris came up with this idea. Everybody says, I would love to come with you, but I can't. So how do we allow these people to come through and really become virtual crew members in this journey? So through the member portal and everything, we allow people to really kind of be in the wheelhouse with all the planning, all the discovery, look at the maps and look at all these clues, figuring out how we're pinpointing our locations, and then ultimately being on the boat with us, whether it's eventually through VR goggles, through your phone, your iPad, your desktop computer. We want you to be involved with us. And then we have a community forum set up right now with all like-minded people looking to be a part of this experience, to talk with each other, talk about legends and things that may be real, maybe not, and discuss some of the projects we have coming up. So that's really what my role is here, to help facilitate this experience for non-treasure hunters, including myself. So in essence, I'm being really selfish here, and I'm trying to build something that I would enjoy, knowing full well there's a lot of other people that would enjoy it as well.
So
I
what
think
got
that's
us
great.
excited? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Katie.
No, you're fine. Go ahead,
I
Sven.
was going to say what got us excited about this was thinking about how a parent or a grandparent could create, working with you guys, becoming a member, could create an experience that they could share with, with a child or a grandchild. And my son's too old now. He probably, I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it. He might want to do this, but certainly if I had a child or even a teenager, I would think this would be the coolest thing to do with my son. Or if I were a grandparent and had a grandson, I would think that this would be just an incredible way to create an authentically unique experience that you can have with this person. And so that's what got us excited about doing this interview with you guys, because we want to hear a little bit more about how that works. I mean, and so Mike, you're the techie, right? You're the guy in charge of live streaming this experience back to us guys who are here in the comfort of our own home. How does it work? I mean, do I do this on my laptop? When do I do it? How often do I log in? What's the experience like?
Absolutely. So we announced some of our upcoming projects in 2023 on the site. Code names, because there is a lot of, you hear with some of the pirate stories, you do have to be careful with information. Information is absolutely the most precious thing that folks in this business can have. But the experience is we want it to be, it's a real community type of environment. So anybody that is looking for adventure, and ultimately us facilitating this for people, we hope you define the treasure in your life and go out and find it. So yeah, come along with the ride for us, but hopefully this sparks something within each one of our members that, maybe you are missing something in your life. What is your treasure? And just go out and find it. So that's the community we're building here. Within our forum itself, it's going to be a lot of like-minded people like that. So yeah, we discuss, diving, treasure legends and things like that. But we encourage people to say, define your treasure. And it's almost a little bit of a support group in that sense, that it's everybody that's seeking adventure, becoming the captain of their own life. Every day is a new day. And we really want to build that community of people that are really enthusiastic just about life and going out and discovering and finding things, whatever that might be for you as an individual. So I'm getting away from the tech side of that, but just that's something I'm really passionate about, what we're doing here. I think it really has a real impact on people's lives just as they live them. But when it comes to the live streaming, so everybody that logs in, you come into your profile, you get access to member-only information about all of our projects. So as we can release information, you'll get updates on maps, the clues we're following. So it's like you're in the planning stage with us. And then when it comes to live stream, we'll have notifications going out. You'll be able to log in from any device. So mobile device, a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, whatever it might be. And within the portal itself, you'll be able to view this live stream. And it's not so much as what you might expect, just one camera somewhere. What we plan on is a fully immersive experience. So you're going to hear communications between the boat control room and the divers. We're going to have cameras in the water, cameras on deck. So you're going to see full operations. So it's really going to be like you're there with us, and get that rush of seeing just a well-oiled machine, all these people moving around. There's a little bit of danger involved. And ultimately, when we find something, we can all celebrate together that, we all went through the trenches and we came out victorious.
So,
I love that.
So,
Go ahead, Stan. I have a question for Mark when you're done.
I've got tons of questions. I hope we have long enough to do this interview because I have so many questions about it. I'm excited. I want to do this. So I just briefly took a look at your website, and it does not look like this is an enormously expensive activity.
No, not at all. And really, it was designed that way because this shouldn't be something that's reserved for people that can afford $1 million boats, or to take off of work for 6 months and just go travel and experience it. So it really is. It is not expensive. We have a community membership that's totally free. If you just want to come in, learn some stuff, and interact with really cool people, please come in. We want everybody involved in this. And then, we have our charter membership in different levels as well, depending on access and your ability. But we want this available to anybody. We really don't want any barriers because it's such a cool thing to experience. And the ripple effect that could have in someone's own personal life is tremendous. And we don't want the barrier of entry to be a price point that somebody, wouldn't be able to get through.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too. I love that too. So for you guys who are wondering, number one, if you're interested in the Treasure Experience upcoming events, there's actually a page, we'll link it in the show notes, where it gives you some details on what events they have coming up for 2023. And if you're interested, there is, as Mike said, a community membership where there is no charge. There's also a charter membership that right now is just $48.94. And so if this is something you're interested in, they are doing their best to make it extremely affordable so you guys can go and be a part of it. So just to pivot for a minute, and Mark, a question for you. Beyond just Treasure Experience, this also inspired you to write a new book. It's called Finding Your Treasure Without Losing Yourself. So tell us a little bit about exactly what inspired you to write the book and what readers can expect from that.
Okay, so I went through the 80s with, the human potential movement, participated in a lot of contextual workshops, to kind of taking your life apart and putting it back together, figuring out what you want to be, do, and have when you grow up. I found that I'm still working on that. I haven't grown up yet. So my tagline's always been I would be a rodeo clown when I grow up, but I might be getting a bit too old to do that now. But what happened is I wrote the book originally. I finished it around 2009 or 10, and I went with one of the traditional publishers who said, kick it back and go do this and this and this. And that book was called Goal Winning. And when I started doing case studies, I found some clients to do goal setting, and one of them kicked back and didn't do the assignment, left everything blank. And then in our follow-up meeting, just said, can I go on a treasure hunt with you? So I went from talking about their goals, they all of a sudden wanted to go on an expedition. And I said, I don't have any available at this time, but it triggered something in me. I thought, well, if I could associate people's goals in life, their be, do, and haves, with treasure, that everyone would identify with treasure. Everyone does identify because treasure is a noun and a verb. So it represents something valuable that you might want to acquire in your life. It could be a car, it could be a relationship, an education, but also it's a verb, and it's the way you hold something dear to you, you treasure it. So I thought, well, I can use that word, and I just went back and rewrote the book and found a mutual friend with Stan and Rob Cosberg, who said, I'll publish your book. And that was it. So the adventure stories were kind of a thing that came in after the actual basics. And my brother and I put those together, that we call them the anecdotal treasure stories that correlate to each chapter. At the end, is it supposed to be a here, go take this format we've used for the last several decades and try it for yourself. So that was it. And it's amazing. We still use it, actually. It's no matter how much we might know it, we go back to the basics every day. We look at where we are, and some days are more intense than others. Usually it's a 5-minute glance, see if we're on track, and we use our own stuff. So we use our own technology, we use our own methodologies, and we use it in our business in all aspects of it.
We all do.
There it is.
And it does work. It actually does work. We used it to plan projects. We used our format to develop our technology that we own. It's our own. It's exclusive to us, and it is one of the ways we can deliver the treasure experience uniquely, because we have the only underwater system in the world that you can effectively control, tow, and work under thruster power and carry sensors and cameras. And you can bring people with you and they can see what you're seeing. And there's nobody else that has that. There are other underwater vehicles that will do in a limited capacity, great for pools and reservoirs, not so good in the ocean. So ours works, and we've been using the heck out of it lately. So we found lots of cool stuff. And by the way, for the treasure experience, one of the ideas when we actually came from the concept, which was just a simple discussion going back to when we first started, it evolved to, well, how could we actually do this? And about 10 years ago, we thought we would launch and try it. And we realized the appetite for the consumer would be too great. If we started and we couldn't keep feeding more and more and more, they would just go away. So we decided to spend a few years perfecting it. So in advance of launching the treasure experience, we've spent over 4 years surveying, and we've literally hundreds of days, thousands of hours. So we have lots of places to go to. Plus we have, from before that, we can revisit. We have preliminary research and surveys in other parts of the world. And then we also have affiliates and associates that have projects in varying stages, and we can join them too. So we think we can, once we get this ball really rolling, we can keep it rolling.
That
So
is awesome.
there are a lot of treasures that haven't been uncovered yet, sounds like.
Most of it hasn't been found. There's actually very little of, compared to what's been lost, that's been found. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about just, the colonial period where the Spanish and the other European countries plundered parts of Central and South America and took the wealth back to Europe. A lot of that just didn't make it. But there's other parts of the world where time capsules with history and things that have never been seen were lost. And once you find that is unique in and of itself, even if it doesn't have any commercial value.
Absolutely. Well, guys, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you would like our listeners to know about treasure experience?
Oh, I have another question though, before we
Okay,
get to the
go
end.
for it.
Hold on. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So just thinking about upcoming adventures, tell us about one or two of those that you guys are really excited about.
Okay, so we have what we call silver bullet sites, and we have 2 of them in line now. These are ones we'll do in the next 30, 60 days. A silver bullet site is something that there's no legal hindrances, no environmental issues. There are no jurisdictional issues. So you don't have to get a permit. You don't have to deal with those issues. So in that respect, we're very, very fortunate. We have these 2. We probably will have 5 or 6. So we have these. We're planning to do them, and they'll be in the moment when people see it. That'll be, hey, look what we just found. And they're off the coast of, oh, there we go. I get the air conditioner just kicked in. So we have these would be, in theory, treasure sites. They would have something of value, silver or gold coins. There is no ship left, so that's why they don't have the legal and jurisdictional issues. They are just, I call them commodity deposit sites that just by chance the upper structure of the vessel broke up, drifted away, was consumed by nature, and all that's left is the inorganic materials. And we've zeroed in on 2 sites that we think are inorganic and quite valuable. So that means we should be able to show something. And in a way, what we're about to do hasn't ever been done. There are people that have been walking on the beach and found a coin or some coins. Along the coast of Florida, there are people that randomly blow holes in the bottom of the ocean with their prop washers and they find a bunch of coins, but those are like winning a lotto. You know, those are something that they just were there, and they knew it was a target-rich environment. They finally got lucky. What we've done is by design with research and several remote sensing technologies, satellite imaging technology, and the Nova Ray and the sensors that it carries. So when we do it, we expect that to be a duplicable process, one that, unlike everyone else in the business who, if they get lucky, can never actually project as another success based upon the prior success, we're actually building on that.
You mentioned that Nova Ray. What exactly is that?
It is an underwater drone, and it has a arcuate wing design, which means that wings are curved. And it's by the wings being curved, we can tow it underwater, carries cameras. The original legacy issue with all underwater vehicles was just basically underwater cameras that they figured out how to control from the surface. And then now, because of advanced technologies, we carry a sub-bottom profiler, which is like a ground penetrating radar. We can carry, in addition to cameras, that and forward and side scan, look in the sonar, and other sensors if we think they're needed. And it gives us ability to do a search area. And we know this, we've quantified it. It's about 7 times faster than the next combination of sensors and ROVs anywhere in the world.
So
There you
for
go.
those of you guys,
Yeah,
yeah.
Katie's
So for those
putting
of you guys who are joining us via audio, you can go and check this out on the website. We'll give you that information here in a minute. For those of you guys who are joining us via video, then on the screen you can actually see what Mark is talking about. So this is the Nova Ray that he was speaking of. You can see the curved wings, and there it is. There are the guys in action. Awesome. Okay.
On a technical note, if I was to take one of those wings and do a cross cut on it, and you looked at it, it's the opposite of an aircraft wing. So if you look at an aircraft wing, it's curved on the top and flat on the bottom. Not talking about how the wing curves like a bow there, but the front to back. I flipped that over, so it's, instead of creating lift, I'm creating a dive, so I can counteract the drag of the cable. And this was the big deal about this little vehicle. So a little 80-pound vehicle, you can tow it. I've actually towed that thing 10.5 knots. Now, I would never do a survey at 10.5 knots. All of my surveys are 2 knots or less. But what if I was going forward at an 8-knot current? I basically got 10 knots. So I want to be able to control that vehicle, whether it's a forward current, cross current, or whatever. So those are some of the design qualities that I put in there when we built this thing. Mark was the guy that said, "This is what I want you to build," and then he said, "How are you going to do it?"
But Chris, you're the guy that invented it.
No, Mark and I invented it. I'm the guy that makes it, figures out how to do it, the implementation guy. Mark kind of sees the vision, and then he'll draw it out on a sketch of paper as best he can, and then I'll go gather up the tools, the personnel, or whatever I need to put it together.
So Mark is the visionary and you are the implementer, and then Mike, it's your job to figure out how to make all the technology work so we can all reap the benefits of it. Is that everybody's job in this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty
That's
close,
good,
yes.
There's
Good.
How many Nova Rays are there in the world, or is there just one?
Well, originally we built it for ourselves, and we had about the prototyping was supposed to last 6 months. It lasted about 3 years, and then we spent another couple years in the field testing and applying it to what we wanted to use it for. And then 9/11 came along. So we got the bright idea we wanted to compete with strategic contractors like Boeing and SAIC, and we were going to get in the marketplace. Well, after 4 years, 5 years of that, we realized that we were out of our element. So we went back to using it ourselves. In that time, we had about a dozen vehicles that ended up in people's hands. We've had great success with oil companies. We even licensed our technology to a company in Malaysia. Was the most money we ever made, just from they wanted to have access to our patents and our design, and it was that was good, but we never actually got those contracts for Homeland Security. And so actually in the world, if there are some at a couple of universities, Scripps Institute, East Carolina. I'm not sure they're working because I think their software is probably not up to date, and we haven't heard from them in a while. And there's some that went off to Spain and Africa, and they probably just wore them out, and they're sitting somewhere in a warehouse. Or one ended up in the bottom of the Mississippi River. We got that one back, and we actually bought it, and somebody found out we bought it and used it for parts. And I think we have one in Southeast Asia, and we have one here in Florida with us.
So guys, it just seems like this device that you've created is really what makes it possible for guys like me to be able to share in this adventure experience with you, right? This is the technology that really makes it possible, right? This is where the camera is. This is really the secret sauce you guys have.
It is definitely, would put it this way, for the real-time connection, that's the Nova 8. You can always watch a documentary, but for having a real-time connection, unless you're with us in the water with us, you're going to be connected by satellite communications through the internet to us on the boat to the vehicle underwater. And it's all come together now. I mean, this is something we conceived a long time ago. It wasn't even 10 years ago, satellite communications was cost prohibitive and not very reliable on the smaller boats that we would like to use for projects.
How soon could somebody start having this adventure experience with you?
They can sign up today, and we'll be delivering this month something. So they'll be able to see stuff in March, by the end of March.
Yeah, and we're having this interview in March of 2023. So you're saying in this month in March, it'd be possible to actually get on my computer, get on my phone, and watch you guys go underwater and maybe discover some really cool things.
Yeah, March most likely, but even if we don't get a good weather window in March, by April for sure. And then later in the year, we're moving into parts of the Caribbean where we think we'll have better weather windows after April. Probably better water conditions, clearer water, more interesting things to look at. There's one country we just can't talk about it yet, but we'll be announcing as soon as we finalize the contract.
Very good, guys. This has been quite a pleasure.
Absolutely has. So thank you for everyone for listening. This has been the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with your hosts, Dan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. Our guests today have been Marc Geriene, Chris Geriene, and Mike Baumhoff. To find out more about Treasure Experience, to get a copy of Marc's new book, or to find out about the upcoming projects that you can be a part of in 2023, visit treasureexperience2.com, and we'll also link that for you guys in the show notes. Guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you too. Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to the Your Life, Your Legacy podcast with Stan Miller and Katie Beth Hand. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more about Stan and Katie Beth, go to pinnaclelegacylaw.com. You can also find links in the show notes.